evil queen, the original Disney villain. A queen who will stop at nothing until her stepdaughter Snow White is dead, and all because she is the fairest of them all. In Once Upon a Time, some have argued that the evil queen is actually the main character, even including others like Emma, Henry, and Rumpelstiltskin. But let's be honest, if the evil queen didn't do what she did, then the story wouldn't have been set in motion. So it all began when she was born to Prince Henry and Cora, who had magical abilities. Her powers are what made the kingdom rich. They named their daughter Regina, but growing up, her mother didn't spend much time with her, so she forms a stronger bond with her father. When she grows up, she starts to love horse riding and comes across a stable boy named Daniel. The two fall in love, but keep it a secret from her mother. This is because her mother aims to have her marry King Leopold someday. However, Regina keeps seeing Daniel until one day she sees a little girl screaming riding a runaway horse. Regina manages to save her, and it turns out she was King Leopold's daughter, Snow White. Leopold is so grateful that he finally proposes to her, where Cora accepts immediately before Regina can answer. It's not just Regina who's disappointed in this engagement, but also Snow White. The two end up having a private conversation where Regina confesses that she doesn't want to marry Snow White's father, as she is in love with Daniel. She makes Snow White promise to keep this a secret, as she plans to run away someday with Daniel. However, Cora senses something is off, and tries to manipulate Snow White into telling her, which she ends up doing. Cora then stops the two lovers, and Regina begs her mother to let him go. She doesn't care about being queen, as Daniel makes her happy. Feeling that there is no other option, Cora takes Daniel's heart and crushes it. Regina, heartbroken, is forced to carry on with her marriage to King Leopold. One day, as she's been fitted into her wedding dress, she is visited by Snow White. She tells Regina that she did tell Cora the truth about Daniel, only because she was told Cora would understand, and that she didn't want Regina to lose her mother. Regina ends up lying, saying that she is happy to marry Snow White's father as Daniel ran away from her. Regina finally realises that her mother had spooked Snow White's horse, hoping that her father would notice her. Her emotions turn to anger as she wishes that she had just let Snow White die that day. Trying desperately to get out of her marriage, Regina finds her mother's spellbook, which summons Rumpelstiltskin. He offers her a magic mirror so that Regina can send her mother to another world. However, Cora knows what the plan is and so freezes her daughter before she gets trapped. Regina breaks through anger and pushes her mother through the mirror. She returns the spellbook to Rumpelstiltskin, who asks her how it felt to use magic. She confesses that she loved it, but doesn't want to end up like her mother. But Rumpel still offers giving her lessons. Regina is now married and becomes queen, still heartbroken by the loss of Daniel. She goes to his grave and uses magic to keep his body in perfect condition, which makes her finally take lessons with Rumpelstiltskin. It takes time for her magic to grow, but insists on never using it to harm anyone. However, one lesson, Rumpelstiltskin tells her to remove the heart of a unicorn, but of course she refuses. Rumpel confronts her on letting go of the past, where she asks if magic can bring people back from the dead. He says this is impossible, but she comes across a man named Jefferson, who will eventually become the Mad Hatter, who possesses a magic hat that can transport you to different worlds, and he might know someone who can help. She lets him have access to the enchanted forest if he brings her this person. So maybe it's not magic that can help, but science. That's right. Regina seeks help from Victor Frankenstein. Unfortunately, the experiment fails, which fills Regina with sadness but also anger. She proves her self-worth to Rumpel by ripping the heart of another one of his students and crushing it. As Regina is taking more lessons, she tries to take revenge on Snow White, but is foiled as her stepdaughter earns respect and gains certain skills such as horse riding and archery. Eventually, she manages to have her husband, the king, killed and gains her magic mirror and asks him to find someone suitable enough to kill Snow White. Much like in the fairy tale, she sends out a huntsman to kill her and bring back her heart. She finds out that it's not her heart, as the huntsman can't find it in his heart to kill the princess. And so the evil queen takes his heart, so he is now in her total control. Now, during this time, while Snow White is on the run, the evil queen finds and destroys many lives to achieve her goal, but I'll skip over these to save for another profile. She manages to get 2 kids named Hansel and Gretel to steal from a blind witch which happens to possess a poison apple. She then makes a deal with a King George, who's been having problems with Snow White himself. She has fallen for Prince Charming, and he has in return, which King George does not want. He has Charming imprisoned, in which the evil queen claims she can use him to kill Snow White. She manages to communicate with her stepdaughter, and they decide to meet at Regina's old home where it all began. On that day, the evil queen tells Snow White what really happened to Daniel all those years ago and offers the poison apple. She also tells Snow that she has her Prince Charming, and if she wants him safe, she will take a bite. She agrees and falls into a sleeping curse. However, she learns the huntsman had let the prince go, and so she traps him in the infinite forest so he cannot find her. But it didn't work, and she finds out that true love's kiss had woken Snow White from the sleeping curse. The two end up in a war, as Regina wants her either dead or to give up her claim to the throne. During this time, Rumpelstiltskin gives her an idea of a dark curse. This idea increases in her mind that she ambushes Snow White and Prince Charming's wedding to announce this plan. She goes to Maleficent to find out about the curse, which ends up in a magical duel. The evil queen wins, trapping Maleficent in a chandelier and taking the scroll explaining the curse. However, she finds an imprisoned Rumpelstiltskin and finds out that to fulfill the curse, she must use the heart of the thing she loved most. Before she leaves, he tells her that there will be a saviour who will break the curse, the soon-to-be daughter of Snow White and Prince Charming. The evil queen knows the only person she loves who is still alive is her father, and takes his heart out. She casts the curse, and as it's travelling through the enchanted forest, she goes to Snow White's castle, where she finds her stepdaughter holding a wounded Prince Charming in her arms. She is told that Snow's daughter has escaped into another world, but the queen believes that this curse will give her a happy ending, bringing misery to those she hates. But will it bring a better life, or is there more to it? Is Regina still somewhere deep inside the evil queen? It might take more than a curse to gain a happy ever after.